Yo, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy Zether here, back at it again to drop another part for What If Deku Was Sukuna's Reincarnation. The first part of the series received a lot of love, and I am here to deliver a part 2 for this blessed series. I hope you guys go on to enjoy this part, seeing as I put a lot of work and effort into it. And in case you haven't already, make sure to go down below and check the links down in the description. Check out the group channel, the Akatsuki, me, Rogex, Izukage, Phoenix Sanin, as well as check out the link to my boy Kage, the maker of this thumbnail, as well as check out the link for my Discord server, seeing as I do have one in case you're wondering. And with that being said, I don't really want to waste your guys' time too much, so we're just gonna go ahead and get started. Okay, so we pick up the story right back up right after Deku basically goes home from the coffee shop. Right after your boy Deku got that number from Camie. You feel that vibe? But before I continue the story, there is one major change that I do want to make to the story. On the last part, I ended up saying that Mirio became the successor of One For All, but I am going to be changing that right now. I realize that to the story that I want to create, there's going to be one little change that I am going to be having to make. This change is not going to be really that crazy, but Todoroki is going to be the successor to One For All. Now, some of you guys may be like, why Todoroki? You know, he's already strong, but trust me, just keep watching. You'll find out. Not today, not the next day, but very soon. Anyways, that being said, after this, Deku would basically go home and he'd just be laying in bed as he's kind of just fiddling around with like one of the a basketball. You know, he just has one of those in his hand. He's throwing it up into the air and catching it as Deku just proceeds to go into his mindscape and asks Sukuna what he should do for the remainder time of the 10-month training. Sukuna would tell Deku to honestly just relax and work on the domain expansion, seeing as in this world, there's nobody who can stand above him. Deku would smile after hearing that, and he would then say, relax, huh? Alright. As immediately he would just pull out the number and he would type it on his phone. It's at this moment that Deku would continue to basically just give Camie a call, right? He'd give her a call late night. Camie would answer the phone, she'd say hello, as Deku would say hey. As Camie would immediately be like, oh, it's you. I thought you'd never call. Deku would say, of course he would. And he would ask her if she's free at the moment. To which Camie would say, I mean, she's not doing anything, but she can't go out. As Deku would say that, who said anything about you coming to me? I can go to you. As Camie would say, what do you want to do? Deku would basically just say, you know exactly what I want to do. I want to study. And Camie would be like, oh, okay, you can come over, but you'd have to sneak in. My parents are asleep upstairs. And Deku would do just that. Deku would literally just run over to Camie's house and, you know, he'd be wearing a hoodie and just some joggers. As Deku would arrive there, he'd immediately, as the way that her house is set up is it's a 2-story house, right? And Deku would sneak in through Camie's window. Deku would do that, and right after this, Camie and Deku would get down to studying. You know, they'd open the books and, you know, they start doing math, biology, science, and reading and all that stuff, right? You know, they're just doing a little bit of studying, and to say the least, Deku ends up clapping some cheeks. I think y'all heard nothing. You know, it's a PG-13 around here. You know, nothing to see here, YouTube. Just passing through. Anyways, after this, Deku would basically spend a couple of hours with Camie just watching a movie, and it's at this point that Deku would get bored as he would go back home. I said bored, but bored, not born, bored. He'd get bored and he'd basically just go home. To this point that Deku would spend the next 10 months basically just on and off with Camie, doing some late night calls, if you know what I mean. And after that, we're basically just gonna skip on over to the day of the entrance exam, right? To which I'm not even gonna cover, dude. Like, there's absolutely no reason to cover the entrance exam. Deku just completely obliterates the exam. He would go in there and he would take the literal, you know, like the test part, and he would just ace it. You know, he's pretty smart individual. And in terms of the robots, Deku would get about 500 points. He would destroy them all using curse techniques and just his physical, just fighting prowess. He would just obliterate each and every single one of the robots in his area. He decided not to take out all of them because, you know, he would just leave none for anybody else. You know, he's not a bad guy per se, right? And yeah, he would basically pass that, and there's really nothing to cover in terms of that. So we're kind of just going to skip over to the day where Deku gets his entrance letter, and Camie would actually text him on this day, to which she would ask Deku what school he goes to. As Deku would say that he's actually signing up for UA, Camie would say, "What, UA? You never told me about that." Deku would say that he doesn't really tell her about much, actually. From what he remembers, that's not the relationship they have. Camie would send Deku a little bit of an angry face and, as Deku would just not really reply. After this day, Deku would kind of just leave Camie on red. And it's at this point that Deku would end up going to the first day of UA, as well, we're just going to skip on over to this day. Deku would basically get ready for class, and he would end up just going in for the very first day of class. He'd see the door and think that, must be some kids with some gigantification quirks or something if their doors are going to be this big. As Deku would walk inside, he would immediately just be greeted to everybody. As Deku would look around, Sukuna would then be in his head telling him there's nothing but weaklings here. Except for, as he would close his eyes, Deku would feel out the auras, and he would then see that Todoroki just stands out to him. Sukuna would say, "Do you feel that, boy?" As Deku would say, "I do." He would look towards Todoroki's direction, as Deku would kind of have like a weird feeling about Todoroki. He'd feel as if he's powerful. He has potential. But before Deku can even get the chance to go up to him, a familiar face would stop Deku. Bakugo would be standing right behind him. And this is when he would grab him by his shoulder and say, "Deku?" Deku would turn around and say, "Kachan," as Deku would say, "Dude, long time no see." Bakugo would say, "You're telling me? It's been forever, man. How you been?" Deku would say, I've been amazing. I didn't expect to see you here." As Bakugo would say, "Well, I didn't expect to see you here." Bakugo and Deku would look at each other as they'd both have a little bit of a smile on their faces. And this is when Deku would basically just ask Bakugo, what he's doing there. Bakugo would say that he knew he was going to be a hero. Don't play dumb. And Deku would just say, yeah, I know. And before they can continue even having the conversation, Aizawa would stand up as he would say, "Hey, everyone be quiet and throw these on and meet me outside." After hearing that remark, Deku would say, "And why the hell should we listen to you?" As Aizawa would say, "Because I'm your homeroom teacher. Now listen and put these on." As he'd basically tell them all to do that, Deku would just be like, "Alright." And Bakugo would say, "Dude, you definitely became a little bit more of a badass, didn't you?" As Deku would look towards Bakugo and kind of give him a little bit of a weird grin. Bakugo would say, "I'll take that as a yes." Bakugo would say, "Well, don't count me out just yet. You remember how powerful we both were when we were kids? Well, I've gotten a lot stronger since then. And knowing that there was always going to be somebody there better than me, I definitely trained even harder than I would have ever imagined. There's no way you're stronger than me now, Deku, especially since you're quirkless." Deku would basically look at Bakugo and say, "Quirkless," he'd say. "Alright, I may be quirkless, but I'm still powerful." And Bakugo would just say, "Whatever. Let's see who wins at this little exam that we're going to have." As they'd go into the change rooms and they'd both just be talking a little bit and catching up. As obviously they would go outside and Deku and Bakugo would be pretty competitive. As Bakugo goes up to throw the ball. Oh wait, no, Deku won. So he would go up to throw the ball and he would immediately throw the ball straight into orbit. As just after seeing that, Bakugo would just be like, "Dude, there's no way you're quirkless." Deku would look at Bakugo and say 100%. As Aizawa would basically look at Deku and be like, "Yeah, he's quirkless." As Bakugo's jaw would just drop. And this is when everybody in the class would have heard that. They would begin to ask Deku if he's serious. And this is when we would have a scene reminiscent to One Punch Man. Deku would just obliterate each and every single one of the rest of the quirk exams. And he would end up getting first place. Todoroki would get second. And Bakugo would get third, with the rest of the order going along to its canonical canon. Now, after acing and just completely obliterating the whole exam, Deku would be just surrounded by people in his class asking him how he got that powerful. And let's just say Invisible Girl gets kicked out. I don't like her. She's annoying. And Deku basically just aces everything. He obliterates the entirety of the exam. And afterwards, Deku goes to his house with Bakugo. To which, as soon as Bakugo walks in the door and Inko would have been in the kitchen, Deku would say, "Mom, I'm home." Inko would immediately just be like, "Okay, Zuko, just, go set your stuff down in your room and food will be ready in a minute." Deku would also say, "Oh, by the way, I brought a guest." Inko would turn around and she'd say, "Guest?" And she'd immediately just be greeted to Bakugo standing there. And she'd be like, what? And she'd run over to Bakugo and give him the biggest hug. She'd say, oh my god, I missed you so much. It's been so dull without having you around here, Bakugo. Bakugo would be like, yeah, as Inko was kind of a second mother to Bakugo. I mean, they were best friends, even though they had like a little bit of disagreements every now and then. You know, kids will always be kids. But Inko will just greet Bakugo and just have, you know, nothing but love for the man. Like, they were pretty good friends when they were growing up. This would lead into Deku going back down and having some good old dinner, as they would then go to Deku's room and they would continue to just play a bunch of video games. After this, Bakugo would ask Deku, you know, how he's been, and they would just start catching up for that entire day. They'd both be getting to know what they've been doing, and Bakugo would ask him if there's a girl in his life, to which Deku would say that there was, but, you know, he doesn't really talk to her. She kind of got annoying after a while. Bakugo would say, one of those, huh? As they would both start chuckling to themselves. And this is when we're basically just going to skip on over to them going back to class. The next couple of days would basically go as just some normal school days. There'd really be no real anything going on. There's like absolutely nothing that's happening, and they're both kind of just vibing and chilling. It's at this point that, you know, a couple of days would go by, and now we will actually just skip to the day of the heroes versus villains. After all these days, Deku has been watching Todoroki since Sukuna told him to keep an eye on him, but not in a creepy way. He just like checked on Todoroki every now and then. Like, that kid has something special to him. Deku knows it. And he felt that sort of strange feeling coming from All Might when he first met him. And now seeing All Might and Todoroki in the same room, it clicks in his head. They must be similar. Something about them is familiar. And Deku just couldn't put his finger on it. But this is when All Might would tell them to put on their costumes, because the pros make the clothes make the pros, and they would all go outside to put on their their hero costumes. It's at this point that Deku would go on in there, and he's gonna end up put his hero outfit. What should his hero outfit be? Honestly, I would give him the Jujutsu Kaisen jacket and all that stuff, but I just don't know. You guys can get the chance to comment down below what I should do. Should I give him the Jujutsu Kaisen stuff, or should he have like a different outfit? You guys let me know. But the outfit doesn't really matter too much. Anyways, this is when they would all go outside, and Bakugo and Deku would be like, yo, dude, you look awesome. As Deku and Bakugo would look towards each other, they'd both like fist bump, and they would both be told that they're actually going to be on the same team, to which they both grin at each other, and this is when the teams are announced. Deku and Bakugo versus Todoroki and Tokiyami. Immediately after Deku hears that, he would get a giant grin on his face, saying, it's perfect. I get the chance to see how strong Bakugo is, and I get the chance to test out this Todoroki kid. He would immediately look towards him and smile, as Todoroki would give him a little bit of a glare, as this version of Todoroki, yeah, he still doesn't use his fire side. He still only uses his ice, but his fire is extremely powerful. Now, this is when they would both basically just go over to their respective areas, with Todoroki and Tokiyami being the villains. Todoroki would freeze the entire building, and it's when Deku would literally just proceed to look at Bakugo, as he would ask him if this is going to be a problem for them. Bakugo would say it won't, and Deku will say perfect. He'll then basically tell Bakugo to wait here, as All Might would say to start, and Deku would immediately blitz in, jump into the air, punch the air behind him, sending him like literally hurtling straight through the wall, and he would literally grab Todoroki and Tokiyami's heads, as he would smash them into the wall, breaking them outside of the building that was frozen by Todoroki's ice. This ice is no joke. The ice is literally dark blue. And if I had to compare it to something, if it would be kind of like Gray's Devil Slayer ice. It's literally that cold. Deku would have broken through all that, and he would then say, kind of cold. As he would then look towards Todoroki, he would then look at Bakugo, as he would say, hey, Bakugo, as he'd say, no need to say a word. He would literally blitz towards Tokiyami and start throwing explosions at him, wearing him down. His explosions were 3 times the strength that they were in canon, due to the fact that he trained them even harder than his original canon counterpart, and he would have all of his moves that he has in Season 4. So that's how strong Bakugo is. He's about Season 4 Bakugo level. So he would basically proceed to start destroying Tokiyami, due to the fact that his quirk is like literally like explosions, plus they're outside in broad daylight, which means his quirk would be even weaker, and it would be a scene reminiscent to that of the UA Sports Festival. And it's at this point that Deku would stare at Todoroki as he would say, "Come on, unleash that power of yours." Todoroki would give him a glare and he'd shoot an iceberg at Deku, which is giant. Deku would start breaking it with nothing but his fists. And he'd just start punching through it, just pummeling it. As he'd say, "That's all you got. Come on, unleash that power." Todoroki would then get angry and he would give him a little bit of a weird stare. As Deku would say, "Is that all you got?" He'd proceed to then look towards Todoroki as Todoroki would be like, "This kid." And this is when Deku would basically smile as he would blitz over to Todoroki. He'd be right behind him as he whispers in his ear and he says, "If you don't use those flames of yours, you're not going to get very far." To which Todoroki's flame side would literally erupt with black flames. And Todoroki would shoot them straight at Deku. To which Deku would jump back by doing backflips and say, "That's more like it." As he would say, "Curse technique." And he would start creating some fire in his hands as he would shoot it right at Todoroki, and he would have weakened it just enough so that his fire and Todoroki's can match. Todoroki would start getting overwhelmed, and this is when he would use One for All, full cowling 20% to get out of the way as fast as he possibly could. Todoroki would then jump away, and this is when Deku would catch him in midair as he would grab him by his head and slam him down onto the ground, as immediately Deku would dust off his pants, and you would then see Todoroki and Tokiyami just on the ground completely unconscious, with Deku and Bakugo looking like complete badasses as they walked away from that, taking an absolute amazing, just one-sided dub. After this, Todoroki would wake up in Recovery Girl's office and he would realize that he needs to work on his quirks, and himself. That kid just completely embarrassed him. And just Deku after that would have realized that Todoroki kid does have potential. That ice was cold. It was funny enough to say, but that ice was ice cold. And yeah, that was cringy. Sorry about that. Anyways, Todoroki would then basically just be told by Deku that right after he woke up that, he's going to be keeping his eye on him. He definitely has potential. And yeah, Deku would have realized that ice, it can't be melted with normal fire. His flames are literally black. They are hot. It's not funny. So this version of Todoroki with One for All and two of his quirks, as well as the quirks that he's going to be unlocking later on, such as Danger Sense and stuff like that, he's going to be just completely broken. And yeah. Anyways, after all of this stuff would have basically happened, Deku and Bakugo... Oh, somebody's outside. Okay, boys, I'm back. Now, it's at this point that Deku and Bakugo would go home, and Bakugo would look towards Deku as he would ask him, "Hey, why so much interest in that Todoroki kid? He is just, Endeavor's son. There's not really no real reason to be, all over him." Deku would look towards Bakugo, and he would immediately tell him that kid has true potential. If it was harnessed in just the right way, he may be a worthy opponent for me. To which Bakugo would chuckle and say, "Your worthy opponent is standing right in front of you." Deku would chuckle at the thought of that, and he would then look towards Bakugo as he would say, "It's true, Bakugo. You have incredible talent and potential as well. But that kid, he's on a completely different level." Deku would look at Bakugo, and Bakugo would completely understand where Deku's coming from. To which at this point, Deku would basically proceed to just smile, as it's at this point that we're just going to skip on over to the day of the USJ, as all of them would be on the bus. The girls would all just be back there just talking to each other, and Suyu would be bringing up who the strongest in the class is. It's immediately when just a bunch of people would just start saying that it's definitely that Deku, it's definitely Zuku, because he just destroyed the kid who most of them would have thought was the strongest. He has two quirks, and he was able to obliterate him just like that using nothing but raw physical strength. Suyu would then mention that Deku actually ended up using flames, and she would ask him what that was about. Deku would say that it was cursed energy, and he would not even lie about it. He'd literally just say that he doesn't have a quirk, but he has cursed energy. And she'd basically ask what that is and if they can use it. Deku would start laughing hysterically, and he would then say, "You using cursed energy? Don't make me laugh. There's no way any of you guys could ever use it. It's out of this world. And after he says that, Deku would realize what he says. As Suyu would ask him what he means by that, and Deku would just say that what he means is that it's just on a completely different level. By the way, in case any of you guys heard that, we all know who that. We all know what that was. You know, this is the man who brings the corn. You know, saying the little frozen drinks. You know, el elotero for those of my Latinos out there. Y'all know what that was. But anyways, that being said, this is basically when Deku would basically, I really just said basically way too much. He'd smile in the back as he's talking with Bakugo, and he would then look towards Todoroki, who was sitting one seat in front of him. He would then tell Todoroki that he's not weak in the slightest, that it just so happens that he's stronger, but someday he may have the potential to catch up to him. As Todoroki would hear that, he'd think, yeah, right, that kid was on a completely different level. He would then proceed to look at Deku and ask him why he says so much about him, why he praises him so much. And Deku would say that he doesn't praise him too much. He just doesn't like hold himself to the value that he should. After this, they arrive to the USJ, and this is when they're all told to get off by Ida, seeing as that whole little, you know, the incident with the cameras trying to get in, like the press, that would have all happened, and Ida is still class president. Anyways, this is when 13 would proceed to give her speech, and this is when she would look towards, the student, and she would say, all right, guys, today we are going to be doing, and this is where, you know, I'm going to be stepping in. This is where I'm going to be ending the video, boys. If you guys enjoyed part 2 for What If Deku Was Sukuna's Reincarnation, make sure to go down below and smash the like button, share the video with a friend, as well as subscribe to the second channel, the Akatsuki. Link for the Discord server down in the description. I keep telling y'all, in case you haven't joined, become a member of the amazing community, the Zether Army. And, you know, boys, just recommend me any ideas for, you know, what I should do with the story next. Recommend the next ship for Deku. And honestly, just let me know what you guys thought of the episode as a whole. That being said, I really have nothing else to say to you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Sorry it was a little short, but your boy's a little short on time today. But with that being said, though, guys, you guys know the drill. I love each and every single one of you guys. It has been your boy Zether, and I am out. Peace.